Welcome to Building People, Companies, and Careers, brought to you by AccruePartners. I'm Amy Pack.
And I'm Patty Comer. We're your host on this journey through the vibrant business landscape in the Queen City.
This podcast is an extension of our mission statement at AccruePartners, where we have spent over 20 years fostering connections and building relationships.
Whether you're a client, candidate, or business influencer in Charlotte, this podcast is for you.
We are immensely grateful for your support throughout our journey, and now through this podcast, we're excited to share the stories that have defined our path.
So let's dive in.
Let's do it. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Building People, Companies, and Careers, brought to you by AccruePartners. I'm Amy Pack, and with me today is my co-host, Evan Lambeth, VP of our IT division.
Thanks, Amy. Happy to be here today with our special guest, Andrew Watts. I have the pleasure of working with Drew through our executive search placement services at AccruePartners to help him land his current role with ServiceLogic as the IT Director of Infrastructure and Security. So welcome, Drew. Glad to have you here.
I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to speak with you guys about my career and some of the things possibly I can help others with and get some insight on the future of technology.
Awesome.
Fantastic. Well, Andrew, we're excited to hear about one, your prior experience, and two, your experience with AccruePartners and what got you to where we are today. So with that, let's talk about building people, companies, and careers.
Awesome. Well, Drew, to start, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and your background in IT and kind of how you've gotten to where you are now?
Sure. So I guess for starters, I'm one of the rare North Carolina natives here in Charlotte. I'm not a native to Charlotte, but North Carolina in general, which I seem to find that it being a rare occurrence. But I grew up outside of Raleigh, attended North Carolina State University. I was always involved in technology as a child, with my father being an electrical engineer and bringing home computers in the 80s, which were dinosaurs and much bigger and more complicated than they are now. But always had that fascination of technology, taking things apart and putting them back together and learn how they operate. So after I graduated from college, I ended up at the North Carolina Department of Transportation in Raleigh, working on the help desk with them, answering technology-related questions. Mm-hmm. I didn't major in any form of technology in college. I didn't have a computer science degree or anything, but quickly found out I was knowledgeable enough to help others navigate, technology-related questions with the Department of Transportation. I worked my way up through there, working lots of contract roles, and then eventually got hired on at Norfolk Southern Corporation up in Roanoke, Virginia. So I moved from Raleigh, North Carolina, up to Roanoke, Virginia, and that was a huge moment in my career because growing up outside of Raleigh, going to NC State right there, I always had that comfort zone and, my parents close by, all my close friends and everything. And I took a gamble and moved to a place I didn't know a soul other than the people I worked for. And that was a big event in my career that made me rely only on myself and nobody else, no connections of any sort. So I worked at Norfolk Southern Corporation for 6 to 7 years. They moved me to Greenville, South Carolina when a new opportunity arose that I was interested in. Worked there for another couple of years. And in 2011, I had a huge life event happen and kind of changed my perspective on things. I took a huge gamble and started my own company at that point. Left Norfolk Southern Corporation. And I had no experience being an entrepreneur. I had no idea what I was doing, but I had the reliance of knowing how to figure things out on the fly. There's a lot of that in technology of, I might not be the subject matter expert of this, but I can figure it out. I have the confidence to do so. So I took that endeavor and started my own business. It was actually a microbrewery there in Greenville, something I had zero experience in, but it was a hugely successful event at the start. And, I remember on our opening day there in Greenville, we were the first brewery to open up in, I believe it was 20 years there. And when we opened, there was 2,000 people waiting at our door to get in when we opened. So that was a huge learning experience. And Eventually, as you've seen, that the entire craft beer industry is experiencing some turmoil now, and uh, saw that coming and wanted to get out and get back into the corporate world. That was also with transitioning from a young single guy with no real responsibilities to a married family man. And now it's not about me anymore. It's how do I provide for my family?
Yeah.
And, anybody that's a small business owner knows that there's a lot of long hours that goes into that, and wanted to get back into technology. So I jumped ship of my own business and got a job with Michelin at their North American headquarters there in Greenville for a short stint, and then moved over to a French construction company in Greenville, South Carolina. Worked there for just a year or two, and eventually landed a role with Microsoft here in Charlotte. And that was right around the time of COVID. And so I was working remotely for them. Worked there for a very brief stint, and then made my way to LPL Corporation, working in their technology department, their campus out of Fort Mill here, and worked there for a good couple of years until this latest opportunity, working with Service Logic, that you were influential in landing me that role.
Yeah, that's quite the journey and a lot of different industries and being an entrepreneur. So hats off to you for that. So I guess when you look back on your career journey and your most recent journey to identify where you were headed next, what are some of the experiences or opportunities and conversations that are most memorable to you through that process?
Sure. This latest opportunity. Number one, when I've kind of started putting my feelers out and trying to find something to go in outside of where I was presently at, this was right around 2024 starting, and the market was not great. I learned that pretty quickly. Most of the people I talked to, beforehand in late 2023 were saying, "Oh, wait till January. New budgets come in. There'll be more roles available," and that just did not happen in 2024. This has been an entire year where the technology sector has seen a dip unlike they've ever seen. It's usually, roles are readily available for everyone in technology, and just 2024 has not been the case. So that challenge presented itself pretty early in looking. Then I had really invested all of my networking in internal networking at the corporation I was working for, which was great. I met lots of wonderful people, friendships, connections that'll stay probably for a lifetime. But unfortunately, that limits you when you're looking external.
Right.
That I did almost zero in external networking here in the Charlotte market. So that presented me with, I need to get busy doing this if I'm going to get anywhere. So I began that journey, and that was part of the reason and how I met, I guess, you guys here with some of the networking events that were going on.
Yeah. I remember we hosted one in our office, and you came into one of those events, and that was where we met for the first time in person. And I had an opportunity to tell you about the opportunity of the role you're in now. So tell us a little bit about your first introduction to Accrue and how we met, and kind of the genesis of that introduction.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think at the very beginning, I was searching and looking for ways of expanding my network. And I think I submitted a resume onto Accrue's website, which, after maybe a week or so, Haley Stockton contacted me, who is one of your associates.
Right.
And she contacted me. We had a Zoom meeting, 15 minutes or so, to make sure that I'm a real live human being. And then later, you and I had a meeting again to go over some of my experiences and things that I've done in my career. And then probably another week or two after that, I get an invite to your Job Seeker Connect event being hosted at your offices. And I looked at that event, and it was about how to use technology to further your job seeking. And, I have to be brutally honest that I looked at that and I said, well, I just got out of grad school, getting my master's in one of the classes on how to utilize technology in order to find your next leadership role. I've been busy trying to learn as much as humanly possible. I don't know if there's going to be anything there that I don't already know. But, the little voice in my ear was telling me, Well, you also don't know who's going to be there. And
Right.
you're definitely not going to run into any kind of opportunities sitting at home in front of your computer. You're not going to meet any new people. You're not going to have destiny come in and do something on your behalf. So I did attend the event. Not only did that turn into you approaching me about a role that just happened to come across your desk that you thought I might be a good fit for, there was also another lady there that I met that was trying to get into the corporation that I just left. That I was giving her some, people to contact and some advice about how to get on that corporation and like what would be the best means of doing so. So it came into being a perfect example of how networking is successful, not only for myself, but for others there as well.
Yeah. Perfect example of how powerful networking and personal connection can be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like I keep going back to, that would have never occurred if I remained on the couch.
Right, right.
Right. Well, I'm happy you had a great experience with AccruePartners. It was a pleasure to work with you as a candidate and now in your role as IT director at ServiceLogic. But transitioning kind of into some more IT-centric conversation, Drew, your role over infrastructure and security with ServiceLogic. Tell us a little bit about what do hiring managers or what does anybody working in the space, what are some upcoming trends that they need to be aware of on top of what's coming down the pipeline that's on your radar?
Sure, sure. Well, obviously, the big buzzword in any kind of technology related conversation right now is AI. I mean, that is the hottest topic you could possibly have. Every corporation, every business is looking to how do I utilize this to help the bottom line?
Yep.
How do I take this new technology, this new tool, and make it beneficial? There's not a foolproof answer for that right now.
Not a one-size-fits-all answer
No,
either.
They're absolutely. But my personal opinion is it is a tool.
Right.
People are worried it's going to replace jobs. It's going to replace human beings. The robots are coming for our jobs. I don't see that happening, at least not for the future, presently. But what it is going to do is people that are not utilizing AI are not using it as a tool to make themselves more productive or make their departments more productive. They'll get replaced by people that do use AI. It's kind of the person that used a typewriter back in the day worried that the computer was going to replace their job. No, the computer didn't replace your job, but you need to know how to use that computer now.
Right.
So it's kind of a changing of the guard as far as technology goes on that front. As far as cybersecurity, that's always going to be on the forefront. It's only becoming more prevalent, especially with world events, and that's the way outside entities are attacking our corporations and our businesses here in America. That's not going away anytime soon.
Yeah.
You're constantly learning. There's not a silver bullet that's a foolproof way of preventing attacks from happening. The most protected company or corporation on the planet still can get hacked. There's no foolproof 100% guarantee out there, which makes that risk factor for companies and corporations all that much more important. That you can't prevent everything, but you can put processes in place to make it very hard for it to happen.
Interesting. Kind of taking that a step further, thinking about the things that are coming, the future of technology. You mentioned a few really interesting things, AI, cybersecurity. Speaking to the folks that are listening in our audience that are maybe earlier in their career,
Sure.
Drew, what do they need to do to upskill if they're already working professionally in the IT space and are interested in AI, cybersecurity, other areas of IT, or anybody that's maybe in college and wants to get into the space after graduation? What are some things that they can do or steps they can take now to perpetuate that career moving forward?
Sure. And I know we mentioned it early in the conversation, networking. I mean, that's huge. Obviously, your curriculum at your school is going to teach you a lot of the meat and potatoes, things you need to know about, threat prevention, coding, whatnot. But you can't miss out on the networking opportunities.
Right.
I mean, obviously, you can do your internships. You can do your, working through career fairs or whatever, trying to find your role and a place to land at. But that Charlotte's a great place for networking events that you go to after hours, where you can meet hiring managers, you can meet leaders, you can meet people, and they can get to see and talk to you outside of an interview environment, which gives you a head start when it comes to that. Also, I think it's critically important, especially in the cybersecurity space, to have examples of your work.
Right.
A good way of doing that is make yourself a website. Yourname.com or just something, make a website or make a server that's hosted out there, and then dare people that are hiring managers to try to get into it.
Oh, that's a
Proof-
unique approach.
Proof positive that, wow, it was hard for our ethical hacker to try to get into that candidate's site. I'd like to have them on my team because I don't even know if our site's that secure.
Right.
That's way to get in front of people and show that not only can I list this out on my resume, I can show you proof positive that I know what I'm doing.
I love that. That's a creative solution for anybody that's potentially in that position. So that's awesome.
You talked about your career journey. You became an entrepreneur, did something completely different, went to MBA and got your MBA, re-entered the workforce. But when you look back over your career journey, what really stands out in that was a pivotal moment for you?
I know I mentioned the moving to Virginia for that role. That was a pivotal moment of putting myself in the pressure cooker where I had nobody to rely on. Starting the business was a huge one for my confidence as an individual and the ability to navigate the waters of getting a new problem thrown on your lap every day that you have no idea how to solve, but you're looking at the bottom line and it's got to get solved. And then, I'm still here living and breathing. Everything's okay. You can get through any kind of turmoil that's out there. That was huge in building up my leadership abilities and confidence as a individual. I learned accounting, profit and loss statements, having to hire and fire individuals, things of that nature that I never would have come across if I would have stayed in my lane, working just in IT in a position with a corporation. But now, even though I'm not in that anymore, and ultimately it wasn't a successful endeavor, I would never trade those experiences for anything because I learned so much at a rapid pace doing that.
Right.
Sticking with things you've learned through your career, Drew, put your hiring manager hat on for a second, when you're thinking about building robust teams, robust IT teams, high-performing teams, what are qualities that you look for in individuals to join your team?
Sure. First and foremost, I want to see that growth mindset. I don't want people that rest on their previous laurels or things they've done in the past. That's great. You need that on your resume. But when you enter into a company or any kind of business, there's going to be a wealth of new material you need to learn. Everybody has a different tech stack. Everybody has a different way of doing things. Everybody has a different business culture. You have to be adaptable, especially in technology, because the things that were prevalent in technology 6 months ago are not the things that are prevalent today.
Yeah.
And in 6 months from now, the things we're doing today are going to be prevalent then. So you've got to continually be learning, continually be growing your skill set, as well as following the latest trends. So I consider that to be hugely important, as well as when I'm building out a team, I'm huge into diversity. I want a diverse set of individuals, not all the same people with the same skill sets. That fuels creativity. When you have people with different backgrounds, different cultures, they're going to come up with different ways of solving problems. And whoever comes up with the best, most cost-effective solution, great. I don't care where it comes from. We just want that solved for the business's purposes.
Right. That's great. I think Amy kind of touched on this as well, but particularly in your career in technology, are there any milestones or achievements that really stand out for you throughout the course of your career as a technologist?
The only thing that I can think of that would stand out as far as accomplishments, and this is kind of out in the weeds a little bit, but when I was with Microsoft for that brief stint, that was during COVID, and working with their Power Platform tool that they were pumping out, trying to get businesses on board with. And at that time, they had recently acquired the U.S. government's data retention contract. If you remember back in was it 2019 or so, they were battling with Amazon in order to get that contract. And ultimately, Microsoft won it. And when I came on board with Microsoft, COVID happened, and then I'm sitting here supporting state and federal governments with vaccine lists and things trying to get out to the general public. They were utilizing Power Platform in order to manage, vaccination, lists and for different states and whatever. Anyway, that wasn't a huge accomplishment for me, but I don't get to save people's lives.
Right.
I'm not in that business, but at that point I was directly involved in that. And, that was a huge thing worldwide. And to have a small part in that and help those entities manage their data and, who's been vaccinated, who's not, I really got a sense of pride from that.
Yeah. That's great. It's great to see technology in action in that way.
Yeah, nobody probably would have linked that together, right?
Right. Right. Thank you for sharing your experiences both with AccruePartners, your career journey, things that really stand out to you. So rapid fire. The first question would be, what is your first career memory?
Now, my first career memory, I'll go two different directions because I've got a career memory and then I got my first job I ever had. First job I ever had, I was 14 years old maybe, and plugging plants in a greenhouse nursery. And if you know what the summer in North Carolina is like, that was probably about the most miserable experience you could have.
Well, if it was like today, that would be terribly miserable.
Exactly. But not afraid of a little hard work. Learned I did not want to do that for a living or work outside for a living at that point. But moved on from there. Now, my first career memory would be working for the North Carolina Department of Transportation at their technology help desk, starting there. And that role was even landed with networking. It wasn't a glorious role, but
The starting point.
absolutely. And I had graduated college right after 9/11 happened. And so if you remember that time, the economy was in the toilet. And as a recent college graduate with no work history, it was hard to find something.
Right.
So I was appreciative for that. But that was answering questions about, Windows logon and password resets and all that stuff. And, now I can reflect back on that with the cohorts that I work with and some of the tier 1 employees. And I've been there. I know that world. I know what it takes. And I'm here to help you, guide you along your career. So eventually you can get up to a position you want to be in.
Yeah, that's great. I always say pay it forward because we were all there at one time. Someone invested in us, and we have to invest in others to continue their growth trajectory.
Absolutely.
Great.
Our next rapid fire question, and you don't have to say their names if you don't want to, Andrew. I wouldn't encourage you to call anybody out here, but who was either your best or your worst boss or manager that you've had throughout your career?
Sure. I was going to ask, is brown nosing strictly prohibited in this podcast? Because I was going to name my current boss
can
as the
go
best
for
one
it.
I've ever
Great.
had. Right. No, but in all seriousness, all of them have had strengths and weaknesses. Even I can think of a couple that were not great at all, but they were great at some things. I did, my way of working did not align with their way of working, and I get it, but they had strengths that I could learn from as well as a leader. I'm probably not the most organized person in the world, and working for a very organized person that is down to the minute, to the, every second of the day needs to be accounted for. I tend to struggle with because that's not the side of the brain that I lean on the most, which is weird coming from a technology person, right? But I've also had bosses that were just absolutely wonderful that, cared about you as a person and an individual just as much as they cared about the work that you put out. And you can really tell that, when a life event happens or something, that you can relate to as a human being happens, and they're there right, by your side the whole time in your corner.
Right.
And I like to, keep an invisible notepad of things that I like from leaders, things that impacted me in my career, and things that I'm never going to do because I hate the way that felt when that happened
Right.
to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I know your current boss pretty well, so I'm happy you said him. Craig's a great guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So next, we always like to know what is your favorite saying or the saying that you're most known for?
Sure. I would have to say it's a very simple one. And my saying is, it is what it is.
Hmm.
I'm a very black and white person when it comes to solving problems. And, in technology, they happen on a multi-day basis. Every 2 seconds, there seems to be a problem. The first step in solving any problem is identifying what that problem is and not playing with hypotheticals or, oh, gee, I can't believe this happened to us. And why are we this happened? I like to move past that immediately. And it is what it is. I don't care how it happened. I don't care why. We've got to solve this problem. We can go back and do retrospective later for preventive maintenance and seeing if we can get ahead of problems. But that's outside the point right now. It's getting this solved. And, in my personal life, my wife is very much so a worrier person, and I'm the it is what it is person. We didn't make it this way. We're not going to be able to change it, but we can take what's happening currently and do something about it. Let's head on that path for a solution. And I think that's the way we work together as a team, great husband and wife, because of her thinking her way and me thinking mine.
Yeah,
great.
that is good.
All right, I think this is bringing us home for the rapid fire. Favorite restaurant in Charlotte for lunch or dinner?
Sure, I'm going to veer off the path a little bit because I reside in Belmont, just to the west of
Nice.
Charlotte.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of good little restaurants in our little downtown. And we like a little restaurant called The Station that's right there in Belmont. And I kind of like to term it as Belmont's little Cheers, where everybody hangs out and we run into other parents and other people there. My wife and I are big craft beer aficionados, so they have an excellent craft beer list. But the two owners are British, and they serve like British street noodles.
Oh, wow.
So you can get I like to keep it healthy, riced cauliflower done pad thai style with fresh vegetables and whatnot. So really great little place to hang out, and it's right by the railroad tracks. The kids love to watch the trains go by,
Yeah.
and just a good little spot to hang out there.
And
Great plug for
Belmont's-
Belmont.
Yeah, Belmont's a great little community.
Absolutely.
We had
love it.
another guest on the podcast that was from Belmont, and I think he named a Belmont restaurant too.
Oh, yeah.
So Belmont's getting a lot of press.
Yeah, yeah,
That's good. Shh, we'll keep it a secret.
Yeah.
yeah. It's getting out there now.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate your time today. And I know the team at Accrue has really appreciated the opportunity to work with you. And glad it was a great experience. And we appreciate you being with Evan and I.
No, I absolutely appreciate the opportunity. I hope we can do it again sometime.
Yeah. Thank you, Drew.
Thank you.